Kickstarting this session is Anant Maheshwari, President of Microsoft India, as he talks to a leader who's been at the helm of a transformation journey. S N Subrahmanyan, Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of Larsen Toubro, SNS as he is known, has charted a new growth trajectory, leveraging the potential of digitization, big data, and predictive analytics. Over to you, Anant.
It is my pleasure today to welcome a leader who sits across many different industries, many different businesses, and sees corporate India from a very different vantage point. A visionary, somebody who's transformed the industry. Really a pleasure to welcome the CEO and Managing Director for Larsen Toubro, S N Subrahmanyan. SNS, welcome to the Future Ready Industry Week.
Yes, Anant, always good to speak to you. Good you found time during these times to travel to Mumbai.
Thank you so much.
Lovely to be with you again.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
So let me get started with my first question, SNS. The manufacturing and the project management sector has always been under cost pressure, and ensuring uptime, asset utilization across distributed sites is always a challenge. Now, L&T is a key driver of the fourth industrial revolution. So how is L&T leveraging cloud-based technologies like IIoT, digital twins, Industry 4.0 for maximizing efficiency, for really driving productivity to drive both top line and bottom line growth?
So this was something which we hit upon in 2016. The idea was, how do you always keep ahead of the competition? Market prices would be market prices. What one can do is control the costs within, in terms of not only the cost per se, but also enhance productivity levels in a situation where it is extremely difficult to do it. It also has to be juxtaposed with the situation that we have a lot of population in India, and one of the jobs as L&T, one of the key objectives of Larsen Toubro is also to provide employment for people, whether it is white collared or blue collared. Keeping these objectives in view, it's a very thin line to travel to find out how to do all this. It's also a situation where you see huge cost increases due to various reasons, due to the world being interconnected, the commodity prices, the logistic prices, unnecessary wars, and so on and so forth, which has multiple effects in which one is unable to forecast, and therefore cost pressure is always there. But the clients never want an increase in price. They also always want a decrease in sales price, but your cost is always under pressure to go up. So that's when we struck upon this idea that, one, if we have to keep doing what we are doing as Larsen Toubro, being the leading engineering service, manufacturing and service provider in India, then how do we keep ahead of the pack? One of the ideas that came across was being a very high-end technology solutions provider. And the way to go about it was to go on an IoT, on a Factory 4.0, use technologies like geospatial, LIDAR, AI, ML, and various other tools, applications as well as platforms, to see how we can first of all get accurate data, get data on which we can be objective about decision making, and third, use the data to benchmark ourselves where we are and to benchmark ourselves with somebody much better than us or the best in the world, and to see how we can achieve that. And by doing this, we ask ourselves, what is the outcome of all this digital activity? And if it can be monetized and looked at from a monetary point of view, I think you have a result which not only tells you whether you increase yourself productivity wise, and also from a cost point of view. With better productivity is always better costs. Yeah. And thereby you arrive at an outcome. And that's what we've been trying to do.
And I know, I still remember many times you also demonstrated to me that you use it even in your head office right now, all of these technologies and direct connection. Maybe a quick example of how you personally engage on this.
Multiple examples. If you go to our workshops at Hazira, which is maybe one of the largest integrated such facilities on earth. If you walk into a heavy engineering workshop where we make made to client specifications kind of orders, you will find that today through IoT, one welder sitting in an air conditioned cabin is able to operate 3 welding machines. Oh. And he is not going and doing the welding, he is controlling the entire welding operation, which is overlay welding, which is a very complicated process, sitting on a console. And he is doing 3 weldings at the same time on 3 heads, which even for me to think was very, very difficult. How are we going to do that? But today it's being done. The accuracy is of very high order. The rejects are practically gone, and the client satisfaction is at its highest, and we are able to do the jobs much ahead of time. The online delivery in Hazira now is 99, 98. Once upon a time it used to be 120, 130. That means we are taking 20% more time. Today we are 2 to 3% ahead of time, which is a big saying for some of these massive fabrications that we are doing. We have introduced various forms of CNC machines, introduced various forms of digitally controlled machines, boring machines, machines for machining parts and so on and so forth. All this has enhanced productivity extremely high. There are more than 100 machines in Hazira which are all IIoT, if I want to use that word. And what it has done is, that example I gave you of that one welder. Now imagine this is a huge workshop. It's not an air-conditioned workshop, of course, it's in a normal Hazira weather. And here's this guy sitting in a cabin, his tea comes to him, his electrodes comes to him, whatever other consumables etc. comes to him, he hardly needs to go out. And this worker used to go for lunch at 12, come back at 2 or 3. Now he doesn't want to leave the cabin, he says I don't mind my lunch also out here. And therefore he is working from 8 o'clock to evening 6, 7, and you have to drive him out to his house because he feels very comfortable doing the job. There's no that sweat there, there's no that effort there because he's not doing the welding on his own, the machine is doing the welding, it's all robotized. We are not been able to envisage all this, and that's what it has done to the workshop. And what has been done in heavy fabrication, what we have done in the east, we are doing to the west. We are taking to our other workshops, we are taking to our defense workshops, and we are even taking it to some of our sites. So all round capability enhancement has been there. Similarly, on the project side, more than 13,000 equipments have been connected today. Of course, Microsoft has played a very big part in it because much of IoT and Microsoft Cloud, Azure, which has been used extensively there. Of course, we have our own Foscore which does analytics and such. But what it has done is enhanced the way we go about. When I say machine is connected, I can sit here today, I don't need to do that, but I can sit in my room today and see how a crane is working at a site. I can see its availability, I can see its utility, I can see what weight it is lifting, I can see the wind speed, I can see some of the operator parametrics, I can see the machine oil consumption or fuel consumption. So like this, multiple parameters can be seen from multiple machines. What it has done is, for example, to recently tell you, one of my colleagues came and told me he wants to buy 36 boom placers. These are machines that take the concrete and place it on a column or beam, whatever. Now I said, can I understand how many machines are working in this company and what is the utility and availability? There are more than 70, 80 such machines working across the company. And when I got the data, I found most of the machines are available 100% of the time, but we're using it 10, 12%. Maybe pandemic was one of the reasons. But having said that, the productivity was so low. I told him I'm not buying these machines. Each of these machines cost 3 to 4 crores. I think I saved 120 crores. I don't know what my colleague did without my authorization. But having said that, that's the kind of decision one took. So I think there's not only an aspect of cost savings on productivity improvement, but also I think the right hand doesn't take a decision without knowing what the left hand does, and therefore you save huge on capital too. There are multiple tools and applications like this being used across the sites. I think it's done a world of good. It has made people involved. It has brought a lot of youngsters into action in some of these matters. It is like the old learning the new, and the new thinking that we are more than a construction or a projects company or a manufacturing company, and some of them may call themselves a IT site or an IT factory or something like that. And therefore we are thoroughly enthused and sort of feeling different when we look at all this, and it makes you feel totally different.
So amazing to hear this, hasn't it? On so many nuggets there, capex and opex optimization. You spoke about end-to-end view for the leadership team, the culture changing between the different generations inside the organization. And what I found most powerful was your specific example of that operator, the welding operator, whose life is changing because of the power of all the tech that is available to him. Amazing, amazing to hear this. Just maybe if I take a horizontal axis on this, and you deal with a lot of vendors and suppliers, you also work with a very, very different kinds of customer base. So how does this digital signal you see flowing, or what digitization you see platforms really operating, supplier to customer, and enhancing overall productivity?
I think in two ways. One, when we show this to our consultants and clients, Much of the arguments at site, in project sites when you go is the customers say that you require 200 welders and 300 masons and 500 carpenters and so on and so forth, and they add it up to 3,000, and we say there's already 3,500 people at site, and there's a dispute immediately because they say no, we counted there's only 2,800 and you don't even have the 3,000 and you're saying there's 3,500. Now with all these applications, we have an application called Visa, Worker Involvement and Supervisory Program, where we know the name of the worker, his Aadhaar number, we know his skill set, we know where he has come from, we can point to the client or the consultant where he is deployed at site. To that amount of accuracy you can go. We can also show on the computer how long he is working, what he is doing, whether he is sitting, whether he is working, whatever. So those kind of unnecessary arguments at site have come down in a big manner. Now one can always argue, you call him a carpenter whether he is really a carpenter, because sometimes you have people, when you have 3,000, 4,000 people employed at site, you may not necessarily get the right skills in the country today. Those arguments go on, but the numbers are not disputed. Second, in terms of worker mobilization and such, we are able to get the people through the application because we know his residence, we know his mobile number, we know where he stays, we know how to contact him on his mobile app. We even send a notice saying there's an L&T job available, why don't you come? And many people respond on that and come. And therefore what it does is, from a customer satisfaction and that point of view, it's come to a very high order. Some of our digital applications, like I told you, the IoT of plant and many other applications, the safety, quality apps, etc., we even give it to the clients. You see what you see, and if you want to criticize us based on objectivity and facts. Let's not talk on broad parameters. And therefore the arguments and many discussions that take place in sites are now more objective, more on enhancement, more on outcomes, more on clarity of the roles, etc., rather than on basic issues like what's the number and the philosophy of working and so on and so forth. So I think from a client consultant point of view, it has taken it to another level. We are also trying to see that when we hire plant and when we get materials, etc., some of the applications that we have, we are also putting it on our subcontractors, telling them that if we can use it and get ourselves enhanced, why don't you also use these applications on your missions, on your materials? We do material tracking based on it. So if I have hired a crane from a subcontractor, there's no need to argue with the subcontractor on whether the crane was working or how long was it working and how much it was lifting. All the data is now available on the mission, because one can see it. And therefore now the objective is how do you enhance productivity? How do you do much more with what you have? See that there is no unnecessary contractual friction on claims and money and so on and so forth. Because all data is available today. So the arguments become very simple. There is no elaborate arguments on facts of the case today. The facts are available. So it is more on objectivity of how to settle the matter today. Similarly, material tracking is, I think, one of the best applications which has gone on. So if certain glass pieces or facade pieces or steel or other items have to come to site today, where is it coming from? How is it coming? And what kind of materials come, where is it stacked, everything is now available to see. There is no need to go around arguing with somebody on this. We are tracking devices helps you with all this. So I think from all points of view, we are getting to a state. It may take another year or so, but I think we'll come to a state where the kind of discussion that we have gets enhanced to a level which is decision oriented, which is objective oriented, which is enhancement oriented, which is productivity oriented, which is, I think, good for all of us, and therefore the quality of discussion goes up, which is to complete projects on time, to do a product on time. I think digital takes us to another universe. You may call it metaverse, I call it universal. So that's the way it is. Yeah.
Thank you so much, SNS, and I always really love the real life analogies that you bring in this. Really interesting to see. It's not just the customer value that you were talking about, but even when I spoke about the suppliers and the vendors, to go down to that last carpenter and be able to relate with that person is amazing. I'll shift tracks a little bit. L&T is a very diversified group. You see a very large types of businesses and as you said across them. And hybrid means many different things to many different people inside your own company itself. There are some sites that have been on all through the pandemic. There are tech businesses that would have worked very differently. What does hybrid work mean inside L&T, and how are you managing it across different types of businesses to make them agile and resilient?
Broadly, there are two parts to L&T, right? The projects, manufacturing, and the services side. I think services side, what we have seen is in some of our companies, LTI, Mindtree, and LTTS, including L&T Finance, if you want to call it a service, I think they adapted very well to work from home. Mindtree adapted the best because for certain reasons, most of the employees therein had a laptop connectivity, and when this pandemic happened, we could easily shift work from home, but for security and certain specific applications, and they adapted to it very well. LTI was the next, LTTI was the third, because LTTS is also an engineering applications company, and they needed some of the solutions rooms and proof of concepts and certain experiments and works to be done before they could adapt to work from home. And everybody was not also adapted with a laptop because they didn't need it. Some of it was experiments. So it took some time, 3 to 4 months before they adapted. But at the end of the day, all three companies adapted to work from home. The productivity has gone up. The client satisfaction level is at its all-time high. The satisfaction on how we perceive our employees has gone up enormously, and they are available for much more hours than what they were in an official time. And therefore, from all points of view, the work from home looks a great concept. It's also a fact that some of the people from Bengal were staying in Bangalore, and some people from Bangalore were working in Chennai. They all migrated to their homes, and now they feel comfy in the confines of the four walls that they know, and they seem to be doing very well. But at the end of the day, we have to ask on that side of the company whether that's the only way to go forward. Because there are employees now who have joined virtually, who are working virtually, and some of them have even left the company virtually. We have not even met them. We have not even come to their office. I feel it is not right. At the end of the day, the culture, the value systems, and what you are as Larsen & Toubro, etc., is built up by coming to an environment where you work with people of some similar background, where you have culture of some similar background. You learn certain things as values and kind of food and the way you treat it, the way you behave, etc., in a particular system. And I think that is important. Also, I believe the best ideas come through when you sit across the table and thump the table and argue and scream and pull each other, and that's the way the best ideas come across. All this is getting lost. The way you learn and teach, etc., is getting lost. It's all being done virtually today in some form or the other. But I sort of questioned myself. I had good discussions with the three chief executives of all these three companies on whether that's the right way to go about, whether that's the way which you can permanently be, etc. I think it's evolving. Some theories have come about where 25-30% of the employees can permanently be at home, whether they can be rotated, whether for certain sex of employees like ladies, whether they could be at home for certain more period of time, certain categories of ladies can they work from home. We find unknown talents in cities where we are not present as an organization, whether some of those employees can be allowed to continue to work from home. I think it will evolve. We have had various discussions on HR policies on this. We have not yet formulated a formal policy, but some informal policies are at work. But as such, they seem to be slowly adapting to it, and we'll evolve it over a period of time. On the manufacturing project side, we had no choice. Again, there are two parts to it. There's one who have to be at the factory floor or the project sites to do the work. And some of them, even during pandemic, had to be at the sites because we're doing critical work. And if we leave it like that, there could be a water flood, there could be some structure which falls down, etc. Therefore, we had to be at the project site. But that has now come back to both workers being at 280, 290,000 numbers level, and staff, more or less everybody being in the project sites or in the offices. But there is certain category out here, the office-based staff like HR, finance, PR, engineering, design, etc., supply chain, etc., which can adapt to it. But then in the project side of the company, we don't want to end up creating two types of employees, one who have the privilege of sitting in the office or home and working, and one who work from project sites and sweat in the sun and all this kind of stuff. So we're a little careful out here. Again, we have had enormous discussion on this. I wouldn't say there's no consensus, but there is apprehensions, and we need to calibrate and do it in a very careful manner. So we are on it. We'll evolve some guidelines. L&T is always known to adapt to new ideas, new practices, and this is something which is work in progress, and we'll come to it in some manner.
No, lovely to hear about the blend of the human elements as you leverage the technology to continue to maintain this and in different parts of the business. Shifting tracks once again, and I know you're very passionate about this. The biggest challenge on the planet is climate and sustainability. What is your view on sustainability and the mission to be net carbon zero?
One more point on the previous question. Again, Microsoft has played a big part. I never heard the word called team and all those kind of stuff. So now I think it's become a daily part of us, like your watch and your mobile phone. So Microsoft Teams travels along with us wherever we go. And, and therefore, that's a must from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock in the night.
Thank you so much.
And therefore, that's become a virtual part of our life.
Thank you so
And
much.
without Teams, I think many meetings earlier we thought which was difficult and we need to have people, etc. I think it also avoids a lot of travel and has enhanced productivity. People traveling in car are talking, people traveling in the airport is talking to us. It's a matter of connectivity. I think we want a meeting, hey, call him. If he's not there, connect him. And therefore, that guy cannot say, I'm not available today. Get out of your car, sit in a bus stop and talk to us now. I need to have this meeting. And where it cannot be done in a phone call and where you need to have 3-4 people and you need to see faces, I think it works very well. Also huge presentations and highly complicated costing and contractual issues and such that discuss, and very easily more people are able to join, so more brains are there, and therefore it enhances the quality and way we go about life. So thanks to that way of Microsoft Teams. I think I also gave you some points on how it can be improved. Yes. Some of that has been enhanced by your team, and we'll continue to help you improve Microsoft Teams as we go along in our own small little way. So coming to sustainability and I think the green initiatives, again there are two parts to it in which L&T is going about it. Number one is the internal. I think that's also very important and sacrosanct. I think we as a company always want to be in the forefront of some of these initiatives, because as a national company, as a company which is the largest engineering and manufacturing and to some extent services company today, I think we deem it very, very important. We also employ more than 175,000 people today as staff and more than 300,000 people as laborers. So that you're talking about nearly 500,000 people in a way directly employed by L&T. And therefore, it is paramount important for us that we are part of the ecosystem which conveys these views to everybody so that it is taken around and they affect so many other people. So what we have done internally is one of my very senior colleagues was head of the committee which looked at the sustainability within the company. So we looked at all our offices, or manufacturing facilities or campuses, the way we go about, we went through all the parameters, whether it is water consumption, to water harvesting, to the green buildings that we have, to the U and K values of the facade that we have in the buildings. We looked at the governance structures, we looked at male-female ratios within various parts of the company. We looked at the consumption of power, whether it is we're using microgrids and stuff like that. We're totally dependent on black power, where they can use solar and renewable powers. We looked at even use of hydrogen. So various aspects of corporate, including the CSR activities that we do on aspects like health and education and microgrids at various sites, use of diesel power, so on and so forth, use of fossil power, so on and so forth. Various criteria have been brought in. We have brought in dates because at the end of the day we are a budget actual company, right? We have to have a target and we have to have an action by, and otherwise we can't go to sleep. And therefore we have put action by, date by on various people on all these aspects, and there's a clear roadmap up to 2040 when we believe we would be more or less a carbon neutral and zero water discharge company. I think there's a clear roadmap to it, complex wise, campus wise, including putting targets on people, and we will achieve that in this period. And even for the year there is some time period and we will achieve that. So I think by 2040 L&T will be what I said. Second, as an organization, we also thought that green and sustainability is becoming a complex topic across the globe due to climate change, and we are somewhat part of it. Again, here we are in two parts of it. One, as an organization, what we can do, and second, as an organization, in the consumption that we do, in the works that we do, how can we go about it? So number one, on what we can do outside, I think we have brought in a roadmap as to, in our strategic plan, as to what we can do as a business. So we looked at green hydrogen as a serious business to be in. We've been announcing plans. So the idea is hydrogen is still costly as a fuel, but I believe we can get into a part whereby we can get into a hydrogen less than $1 over a period of time. Wow. So your joint is Renew for green power, so they will be giving the renewable power. We will be announcing some more as we go forward, where we also plan to get into making both investments in green hydrogen plants as well as doing EPC on a basis for green hydrogen. So we will announce it shortly. Second, we are also thinking of getting into manufacture of electrolysis, whether it is alkaline or PEM technology, we will decide as we go forward. We have signed a memorandum of understanding with a Norwegian company called Hydrogen Pro for that. We will be announcing further as we move forward on this, and that's a serious business for us as from a business point of view. The second part is, as an organization, we do consume fair amount of cement and steel, which is made through using fossil fuels. We need, and also many other materials that go into whatever we do, whether it's a building or a bridge or a road, whatever it is, or hydrocarbon plant, whatever it is, which uses a lot of fossil fuel produced materials. That is not totally in our hands. We will, in terms of the ecosystem, do what it takes with our suppliers and vendors, including our clients, to take up such matters, because I think that is important. The world will change. I am sure many of the vendors and big ticket consumers that we buy from some of these materials like steel and cement are also thinking about it, because these are huge emitters of carbon. And if they, and I am sure they are also thinking of such ways to reduce their carbon footprint. Wherever we can, we will play a part to reduce that. And therefore, it's a comprehensive roadmap that has been envisaged and put in place. It can't all be done in a day, because we have not been that way. We'll have to now do it in a way to, I'm not sure the entire world can change. There will always be some dependence on fossil fuel as long as it exists, or some alternative fuel like hydrogen has to come, which is so cost effective that it can replace the fuel. I don't envisage that right now, but over a period of time it will happen, and we want to be in that. So that is the roadmap, Anant.
No, thank you so much. So let me come to my final question, again something that you're very, very passionate about. You spoke about it briefly in the first answer. Tech intensity is on the rise today, and today's workforce is changing continuously. How are you enabling reskilling and upskilling across the different types of workforces that you have inside L&T to create new opportunities in the organization?
I think multiple ways. This is a topic which is very, something which is very, I'm very fond of talking. It will take a long time to give an answer, but to give it in brief, I think number one is, there are a lot of young people joining, and everybody wants to achieve things in a short time. And therefore, this digital tools, etc., that we have introduced, to be honest, it's not done by older people like me, it's done by much, much younger people. And I'm amazed that what we started as in sometime in 2016-17 is now finding so much traction with so many young people coming out of so many different applications and methodology. Like use of LIDAR for project monitoring, use of drones for taking a transmission line tower from one tower to another tower over a deep ravine or a mountain. I had not envisaged all these things. And within that, when you dig deep, how to use the photogrammetry that we get from LIDAR into 3D photogrammetry, into enhancing into the shape of a building, to convert it into a BIM drawing, to convert it into a BIM 4D, 5D, 3D, 6D. I think I'm amazed at what our people do. There's a recent work exercise that we do, which I thought I should tell you. There was an old copper plant in Dahej, and some of our guys found out a way by which they can map this entire Dahej plant through LIDAR, through drones. And it's a very old plant where drawings were also missing. And they got hold, they put these drones all across, flew many times. Every pipe, every clamp, every bolt, everything has been taken out. It's a working plant, including getting into the hot areas, etc. And that photography has been converted into a 3D BIM drawing today. And therefore, you practically have as if you sort of grew up the plant, or you drew up the plant, or you did the drawings for the plant, the engineering for the plant. So it's amazing what these young people are able to do. I think it's for me, it's a question of giving opportunity to them to find a way for their creativeness, for their thought process, for their ideas, for what you can do. And once you create the platform and you let the orchid bloom, I think it blooms. More important is reskilling our older people. Guys like me were averse to these laptops and computers and so on and so forth. So now desperately we need data, and we can't get it. So once in a while we have to press some button to get the data out. So there's been skilling there too. And also how to ask queries and get replies, so on and so forth. one of the most fascinating things is where internet is going, right? Today you can be dumb and all you need to have is a mobile phone with you and ask a question to one of these platforms available and you get amazing answers out of it. So I think the reading ability, the ability to ask questions, the ability to learn has gone up enormously across the organization. It is amazing that I can just sit in my house and the amount of things I can learn and understand and read because of the technology available today. You don't need to go searching for answers, it's all available there. And with the Teams, etc., you can connect to any amazing person across the earth and have a quick conversation, and many people are available for it today. I think that's also a learning. The other important thing is we have what is called as skill training institutes across the company. We have, I think, 9 or 10 of them and 3 more with collaboration with governments and other NGOs. The workers are reoriented towards learning masonry and electrical work and plumbing and welding and so on and so forth. So all our workers are trained. The retention rate is still low in this, but I think it's a question of time when it goes up. And therefore, we train all our workers into all these new activities, including new kids who don't want to study but want to learn a skill. We put them through all this. And I think that's an amazing way of going about, not only going through a skill training institute, but some of the skill training institutes are also at site for people to learn. We also introduce audio-visual training. We also introduced through Microsoft that glass that you have, HoloLens. And now there are at least, if I remember right, 46 or 47 applications available on HoloLens. For example, if you climb a tall building, what are the disturbing effects that it can have, including showing what is wrong and what is right. And therefore, these examples imbibe the thing in your head and therefore you don't forget it. And this method of training and teaching people is far ahead to the general pep talk or the audio talk and such are the things you give to people. And there are some 45 or 46 such training programs available through HoloLens and distributed to all remote sites for people to tag it on, learn it, and then only they can do the work they're supposed to do. Similarly, we launched a recent platform called L&T EduTech today. And EduTech is supposed to not only, it's supposed to teach you engineering, it's supposed to teach you high-end programming, it's supposed to teach you vocational training. And this is slightly commercial, but it is available on the net for not only our people to learn, for anybody to learn. And that's also on Microsoft Azure, I think. So all in all, I think we are not Microsoft, but we think we are a technology solutions provider. We are going that way. And thanks to the association with Microsoft in multiple ways, we are able to use the technology that is already developed, coupled with our own knowledge of technology in the areas that we are in. And putting it both together, I think we are taking L&T to a different plane and level, and which is what is one of our jobs. What has been given to us, we are taking to a next level, and that's what we're trying to do in all and every way. So it's interesting, it's a fascinating life, and it's taking a shot every day and coming to office and being in it. Yeah, so it's good. Yeah.
No, thank you so much, SNS. I've always held you as a benchmark on candor, clarity, and energy, and this conversation was absolutely an electrifying one. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot to our viewers to listen to us.
Thank you, Anant, and lovely to have been with you again.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah.